Our chronological Bible reading for March 27th is Joshua chapters 16 through 18. The Israelites are continuing to have defined for them what their actual inheritance is. Chapter 16, verse 10 says, "However, they did not drive out the Canaanites who lived in Gezer. So the Canaanites still live in Ephraim today, but they are forced laborers." The prophecy that's made by the power of the Holy Spirit through faith is binding. It has an effect. And yet, that's no excuse for the Ephraimites to disobey God and not fully drive out the Canaanites. God knew for Israel to dwell amongst pagan people who are worshiping other gods, the Israelites would be influenced. To be influenced is a marker of human nature. We are all influenced by those we hang out with. Our parents used to tell us growing up, birds of a feather flock together. Show me your friends and I'll show you your future. We become the average of the 5 people we spend the most time with. Even if you have an indentured servant in your home, serving you and around you day and night, who serves a different God will influence you. It will have an effect. And so God had told the Israelites to completely drive out the Canaanites and all of the other people groups that lived in the promised land, but they failed to do it. And this is the beginning of the downfall of Israel before Israel is even truly formed. This is like the people of God today compromising. When we come to salvation in Jesus Christ, He instructs us to forsake everything in our past life and to be made completely and totally new. Our spirit man wants to grow up and be like Christ, but our flesh man wants to hold on as well. And a lot of times we will compromise like the Ephraimites did. And that leads to our downfall, and many Christians will fall away as a result. God is showing us in this story today that we must be relentless in our pursuit of purification when it comes to our own lives. We have to be holy like He is holy. That means we should be spending more time with other believers than we are with unbelievers. We should be spending more time and devoting more energy to our relationships with other followers of Jesus Christ than we are with the world. But that's incredibly difficult to do in our society today when most of us work with unbelievers. And even if we work with believers, chances are they're carnal because the church has been so diluted. Think about the early church. As you've read the book of Acts, they were devoted to the apostles' teaching, which is studying the Word. They were devoted to breaking bread together, fellowshipping together, having deep heart-to-heart connected relationships where they understood one another and they carried one another's burdens, where they were able to laugh and cry together. They rejoiced with those who rejoiced. They were living in such a way that Jesus said the world would know them by their love for one another. And most of us just don't have that today. Our idea of church today is so entirely different. We go to a service on a weekend that lasts a couple hours, if that. And everything we do in that service outside of 30 seconds hugging or shaking other people's hands is all directed at a stage where we are hearing from other people. Relationships are not formed in that context, and God is all about relationships and the right relationships. He wants us to have relationship first and foremost with Him, but in order to keep that where it needs to be, we must also be in community with other people who genuinely know us, people we can't hide from. So when we're struggling, they see it, they call it out, and then they help us through it. Too many Christians have fallen away because they just simply have not been living in community. It's incredibly difficult for us today in American society when we're working full-time jobs, driving our kids to and from sports events when we're not at work. When we do have some free time, we're likely so exhausted from the things that we've been doing the rest of the week that we just want to veg and watch television for a little while. But God created us for so much more. He wants us to be free to worship Him and to be in relationship with one another. We, as the modern day church, have, like the Ephraimites did, compromised, and we're not really living our lives in a true New Testament church manner. Most of us, if we're honest, live pretty typical American lives, and then we squeeze God in to the parts where there's room. But it should not be that way. The example of the Ephraimites in chapter 16 is followed by the tribe of Manasseh in chapter 17. There were entire cities within their inherited allotment that they were not able to possess, it says in verse 12, because the Canaanites were determined to stay in that land. What happened to the melting hearts of the people as the Israelites were walking across the Jordan River on dry ground, sieging and destroying Jericho, defeating Ai? What happened to the Israelites? Where did their power go? How were they not able to drive out the Canaanites? It began with compromise, and then it was further compounded by the acceptance of compromise. We, as the American church, have accepted compromise. We are too busy to pray with other people on a daily basis. We are too busy to really study our Bible every day and talk about it with other believers. We are too busy to have meals with other Christians on a daily basis. And we're too busy and distracted to really be devoted to prayer the way the early church was. We have a huge problem. It's an epidemic, really, and the result is a weak and largely powerless church. Friends, it's time that we redefine what we consider to be a Christian life. It's time that we get back to the roots of our faith, as is stated in Acts 2. It's time that we rededicate ourselves, that we devote ourselves to praying daily with other people, to studying the Word daily with other people. It's time that we are devoted to breaking bread with other Christians on a daily basis, or as close to daily as possible. Change is hard, but if we want to keep doing the things we've been doing, expecting a different result, the dictionary says we are insane. God is calling His people out of the rat race right now. It's time to evaluate what is really important. Are we listening to God? Are we following God? Are we putting Him first in every arena of our life? These are things to consider. God bless you guys. Thanks for being with me on this journey through the Word in 2025. See you tomorrow.